There is a lake in rural Vermont that does not appear on most maps. Locals call it Black Hollow Lake. And if you ask anyone who lives within 20 miles of it one simple question, have you ever swam there? You will watch their face change. Some will laugh it off. Some will change the subject. And some will simply tell you no and walk away. I spent 2 weeks talking to people who live near that lake. What they told me is the reason I will never go near that water again. My name is Black Tiger. And this is the Midnight Script. Black Hollow Lake sits at the bottom of a valley in a small Vermont town. Population, just under 900 people. From the road it looks peaceful. Still water. Tall pine trees around the edges. The kind of place you would expect to see on a postcard. But locals do not swim there. They do not fish there. And when the sun starts to go down, they do not go near it at all. I wanted to know why. So I started asking. The first person I spoke to was a man named Walter. He has lived near the lake for over 40 years. I asked him directly, why does no one swim in that lake? He was quiet for a moment. Then he said something I was not expecting. Because the lake doesn't let you back out the same way you went in. I asked him what that meant. He told me about his neighbor's son, a teenage boy named Cole, who went swimming there back in the 1990s with 2 friends on a hot summer night. All 3 boys went into the water. Only 2 came back to shore. They searched for Cole for 6 days. Divers, dogs, volunteers from 3 counties. They never found a body. Walter said something that stuck with me. The lake's only 40 feet deep at its center. You'd think a body would surface eventually. They always do. But not this one. I spoke to a woman named Diane next. She runs the general store in town. She has heard every version of every story about that lake. She told me something stranger than Walter did. She said in the weeks after Cole disappeared, 3 different people reported seeing him. Not in the water. On the road that circles the lake. At night. Just standing there. Watching cars pass. One of those people was Diane's own sister. She said her sister was driving home around midnight, headlights hit the edge of the trees, and there he was. Same clothes he disappeared in. Just standing perfectly still at the edge of the water. By the time she stopped the car and looked again, he was gone. Diane said her sister never drove that road at night again. Not once. Not in 30 years. I wanted to know if this was the first time something like this happened at that lake. It was not even close. I went to the town's small historical society and asked to see any old records about the lake. What I found went back over 100 years. In 1911, local records mentioned 2 fishermen who went out onto the lake at dawn and never returned. Their boat was found floating empty in the middle of the water. No damage. No signs of struggle. Just empty. In 1934, a young woman walked into the lake during a community gathering and was never seen again. Witnesses said she walked in calmly. Did not call for help. Did not struggle. Just kept walking until the water covered her head. In 1967, a group of campers reported hearing what they described as, and I am reading this directly from the old newspaper clipping, a low humming sound coming from beneath the water like something singing. They left their campsite in the middle of the night and refused to return. Every decade, every generation, the same pattern. People going missing near that water. People seeing things they could not explain. I asked an elderly woman named Margaret. She is 91 years old. She has lived in this town her entire life. What she believed was really happening at that lake. She told me a story her grandmother told her when she was a child. According to local legend, the lake was not always there. Before the town existed, the land was home to a small settlement that was lost, wiped out by a flood that filled the valley and created the lake almost overnight. Margaret said her grandmother told her the people who lived there never truly left. They're still down there, still waiting. And every so often they need someone to take their place. I asked her if she believed it. She looked at me very seriously and said, "I've lived next to that lake my whole life. I've seen things I can't explain. I don't need to believe it. I just know not to go near that water after dark." On the final night of my investigation, I decided to go to the lake myself. Just before sunset. I wanted to see it with my own eyes. Walk the shoreline. Understand what these people were so afraid of. The lake itself was beautiful. Calm. Silent. Almost unnervingly still. No wind moved across the surface at all, even though the trees around it were swaying. I stood there for almost 20 minutes. Nothing happened. I started to think maybe this was all just small-town folklore. Stories that grow bigger every time they get told. Then I heard it. A sound coming from the water. Oh, steady. Almost like a hum. I stood completely still. It got slightly louder. I looked across the lake, and on the opposite shore, half hidden by the tree line, I saw a figure standing at the edge of the water. Not moving, just standing there, facing the lake. I called out. No response. I started walking along the shoreline toward it, my flashlight raised. By the time I reached the other side, there was nothing there. No footprints in the soft mud. No sign anyone had been standing there at all. I left immediately. I did not look back. When I got back to my car and checked my phone, I had been recording audio the entire time I was at the lake, for the documentary footage. I played it back later that night. Underneath the sound of wind and water, there is something else. A voice, very faint, almost buried beneath the noise. I have listened to it more times than I want to admit. I still cannot tell you with certainty what it says. But 3 different people I have shown it to, without telling them what to listen for, have all said the exact same thing. They believe it is a single word repeated twice. Stay, stay. I do not know what is in Black Hollow Lake. I do not know why people have disappeared there for over 100 years without explanation. And I do not know what, or who, I saw standing on that shoreline. But I know this. If you ever find yourself near a quiet lake in a small town, a place locals warn you not to swim, a place that feels too still, too silent, trust them. Some local legends exist for a reason. If this story gave you chills, let me know in the comments. and tell me if there is a local legend near where you live that the world needs to hear about. Subscribe, because next week we go somewhere even darker. The Midnight Script. Some places remember what they took,